Most men would scream if they saw a stranger throwing a drink on their wife. They would shout, make a scene, maybe throw a punch. I didn't. When the dark, icy liquid splashed across Violet's white dress, staining it like a bruise, I didn't feel anger. I felt a click in my brain. It was the sound of a safety coming off. I didn't know it then, but that stain wasn't just coffee. It was the first drop of a storm that would wash my entire life away. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. It's ruined Mason. Look at it. Violet was shaking. Her hands were clawing at the silk of her dress, trying to wipe away the dark brown liquid dripping down her chest. We were standing in the middle of the atrium at the Grand Highland Mall, the kind of place where the air smells like expensive perfume and the floors are polished marble. But right now, all I could smell was the sharp, bitter scent of espresso and the fear radiating off my wife. It's okay, I said, my voice low. I reached out to touch her shoulder, but she flinched. Violet, look at me. Are you hurt? No. Yes. I don't know, she cried, her eyes darting around wildly. We just need to leave. Please, Mason, let's just go home right now. I looked up. About 30 feet away, a group of 3 men were walking away. They were young, loud, dressed in designer streetwear that cost more than most people's cars. The one in the middle, tall, with bleached blonde hair and a smug grin, was holding an empty plastic cup. He looked back over his shoulder, met my eyes, and laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh, it was a laugh of pure disrespect. He winked. Something inside me went cold. I am a businessman now. I wear Italian suits. I sit in boardrooms. I sign checks with more zeros than I care to count. But before the billions, before the company, I was something else. I was a problem solver for the US military. I spent 10 years in places that don't exist on maps. Tracking men who thought they were untouchable. I haven't felt that old instinct in years. The hunter's instinct. But seeing that smirk, seeing my wife trembling, humiliated in public, it woke the soldier up. Mason, please. Violet grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Don't do anything, they're just drunk kids. Let's go. They assaulted you, Violet, I said, my voice strangely calm. It was an accident, she lied. I looked at her. He threw it directly at you. I saw him. He tripped. Just let it go. Her voice was high, shrill. She was terrified, but looking at her now, I realized something odd. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, staring at the back of the blonde man's head as he disappeared around the corner toward the south exit. Her fear didn't look like the fear of a victim. It looked like the fear of someone with a secret. I gently peeled her hand off my arm. Wait here, Mason. No. I ignored her. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. It wasn't the police. It was the private security firm that managed the mall surveillance. A firm I happened to own a 40% stake in. This is Mason, I said into the phone. Code black on the Highland property. I want a full perimeter lock now, sir. The voice on the other end crackled. That requires a threat level. I am the threat level, I said, watching the blonde man turn the corner. Close the doors. Drop the shutters. Nobody leaves this building until I say so. I hung up. 30 seconds later, the alarms didn't sound, but the heavy steel security gates began to roll down over the main exits with a loud mechanical thud. The ambient music cut out. The hum of the crowd changed from chatter to confused murmurs. I saw the group of men stop. They were near the glass doors, laughing until the metal gate slammed shut in front of them. The blonde guy turned around, his smile fading. He looked confused. I unbuttoned my suit jacket and adjusted my cuffs. Mason, what are you doing? Violet whispered, staring at the closing gates. You can't trap everyone in here. I'm not trapping everyone, Violet, I said, my eyes locked on the men across the hall. I'm just making sure the trash doesn't take itself out before I'm done with it. The hunt was on. The sound of a commercial mall locking down is distinct. It isn't like the movies where sirens blare and red lights flash immediately. It is heavier, more industrial. It is the sound of massive rolling steel curtains descending from the ceiling, with a rhythmic grinding clack clack clack, followed by the thunderous boom of metal hitting marble. One by one, the exit sealed. The main entrance, the side doors near the luxury wing, the access points to the parking garage. The natural light from the glass doors was cut off, replaced instantly by the slightly dimmer artificial glow of the atrium chandeliers. The air in the mall changed. A moment ago, it had been filled with the idle chatter of shoppers, the clinking of porcelain from the coffee shop, and the soft thrum of pop music. Now a wave of confusion rippled outward. People stopped mid-stride, heads turned, phones were lowered. The low murmur of what's happening and is that a drill began to swell into a nervous hum. I stood perfectly still in the center of it all, adjusting my watch. My heart rate hadn't spiked. If anything, it had slowed down. This was a familiar state for me. In the Special Forces, we called it the switch. You turn off the part of you that feels anxiety, empathy, or hesitation, and you turn on the part that calculates trajectory, risk, and target acquisition. Violet, however, was in a state of pure panic. "Mason, stop this," she hissed, her voice vibrating with a frantic energy that didn't make sense. She stepped in front of me, blocking my view of the corridor, where the three men were now huddled near the sealed exit. "You have to open the doors. You can't just hold people hostage because of a spill." "It wasn't a spill, Violet," I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. "It was too flat, too detached, and I'm not holding people hostage. I'm securing a crime scene." "A crime scene?" She let out a sharp, hysterical laugh that drew stares from a couple standing near a jewelry store display. "God, listen to yourself. You're acting like a maniac. It's just coffee. Look, I'll buy a new dress. I'll buy 10 new dresses. Just call security and tell them to open the gates before we get arrested." I looked down at her. The stain on her chest had seeped into the fabric, turning the pristine white silk into a dark, ugly brown. It was cold and wet against her skin. I knew, but she didn't seem to care about the discomfort. Her eyes were wide, her pupils dilated. She wasn't looking at me with the relief of a wife whose husband is defending her honor. She was looking at me with the desperate eyes of someone trying to cover up a murder. "Why are you protecting them?" I asked. The question hung in the air between us, heavier than the steel gates. Violet blinked, her face paling slightly. "I'm not protecting them, Mason. I'm protecting you. You're a public figure. You're a CEO. You can't be seen brawling with some frat boys in a mall. Think about the headlines. Think about the board." It was a logical argument. The old Mason, the businessman Mason, would have listened. He would have worried about stock prices and PR disasters. But the man standing in the atrium right now didn't care about the board. I cared about the disrespect. And I cared about the way the blonde man had winked. "The board can wait," I said. "Stay here." I stepped around her. "No." She grabbed my wrist with both hands, digging her heels in. "I'm coming with you. If you're going to be insane, I'm not letting you do it alone." I didn't argue. I didn't have the time. I began to move through the crowd. The layout of the Grand Highland Mall was etched in my mind. Not because I shopped here often, but because I assessed the security protocols of every building I entered. It was a habit I couldn't break. I knew that with the main shutters down, the only way out was through the service corridors or the fire escapes, which were currently alarmed and magnetically locked. The three men, Ryder and his two lackeys, had realized they were trapped. I saw them about 50 yards ahead near the fountain. They were pushing against the heavy steel shutter of the north exit. The blonde one, Ryder, was on his phone, pacing back and forth. He looked agitated. He ran a hand through his hair, shouting something into the receiver that I couldn't hear. I walked toward them. I didn't run. Running attracts attention. Running implies urgency. A predator doesn't run until the prey bolts. A predator stalks. The crowd parted around me. People could sense the energy coming off me. A radiant heat of focused aggression. I heard whispers as I passed. "Is that Mason Blackwood? What's going on? Hey, look at that guy's wife. Look at her dress." Violet trotted beside me, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble. She kept whispering a stream of anxious noise. "Mason, please. They're just kids." They probably didn't mean it. Maybe he thought I was someone else. "Please, let's just turn around." I stopped walking. We were 30 yards away now. I turned to Violet. "You said he tripped," I reminded her. She froze. "What? In the beginning, you said he tripped. Now you're saying maybe he thought you were someone else. Which is it, Violet?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her lower lip trembled. For a second, I saw a flash of something that looked like guilt, raw and ugly, cross her face, but she buried it instantly under a mask of frustration. "I don't know. Everything happened so fast." "Why are you interrogating me? I'm the victim here." "Exactly," I said softly. "You're the victim, so let me deal with the aggressor." I turned back to the man. Ryder had spotted me. He stopped talking on the phone. He slowly lowered the device, his eyes locking onto mine across the distance of the mall. He didn't look scared yet. He looked annoyed. He nudged one of his friends, a bulky guy in a tight t-shirt, and pointed at me. They exchanged words. Then Ryder did something that made the blood boil in my veins. He smirked again. He whispered something to his friends, and they all laughed. It was a nervous laugh this time, forced bravado, but it was there. He looked at Violet, who was standing beside me, and raised his eyebrows in a mock expression of sympathy. That was it. The last tether of my restraint snapped. I resumed my pace faster this time. Mason Violet squeaked. Ryder saw the change in my gait. He saw the shift in my shoulders. The arrogance drained out of his face. He realized that the suit was just a costume, and that the man wearing it was coming to hurt him. "Go!" Ryder mouthed to his friends. They turned and bolted. They didn't run toward the shops. They ran toward the service corridor behind the restrooms, the one that led down to the loading docks and the underground parking. It was a restricted area. "He's running," I stated simply. "Let him run," Violet begged, breathless as she tried to keep up. "He's gone. We won." "He's not gone," I said. "He's just cornering himself." I picked up the pace, my dress shoes echoing sharply. I reached the service door they had shoved open. It was still swinging on its hinges. I pushed through, entering the concrete hallway that ran behind the luxury boutiques. The air here was cooler, smelling of cardboard and cleaning supplies. The sounds of the mall, the music, the murmurs faded instantly, replaced by the heavy silence of the concrete tunnels. I could hear their footsteps echoing ahead, clattering down the metal stairs toward the lower levels. Violet grabbed the back of my jacket. "Mason, stop! You can't go down there. It's dangerous. There's 3 of them." I spun around, gripping her shoulders. I needed her to understand. "Violet, look at me. I have taken down cells of armed insurgents in the mountains of Afghanistan. Do you really think 3 spoiled brats in a shopping mall are a danger to me?" She stared at me, her chest heaving. Tears were welling up in her eyes now, ruining her makeup. "It's not about that," she whispered, her voice trembling so hard it was barely audible. "It's just if you catch them, if you hurt them, it changes everything." "It changes nothing," I said sternly. "It sets a standard. Nobody touches my wife." "You don't understand," she sobbed, and for a moment, she looked like she was about to confess something. Her mouth opened, her breath hitching. "Mason, please, just—" But the sound of a metal door slamming downstairs cut her off. "Stay here," I commanded. "Do not follow me down there. Wait for security." "No," she screamed, but I was already moving. I took the stairs 2 at a time. I moved silently now, controlling my breathing. The rage was still there, a hot coal in my chest, but I packed it down tight. I needed clarity. I reached the bottom landing. The door to the underground parking garage, the VIP section, was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The garage was dimly lit, rows of high-end cars sitting in the shadows. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and rubber. Because of the lockdown, the exit gates of the garage were also sealed. Huge metal bars blocked the ramp leading to the street. They were trapped. I scanned the area. It was quiet. Too quiet. They were hiding. I walked into the center of the lane, my footsteps echoing deliberately. I wanted them to know I was there. I wanted them to feel the pressure building. "There's nowhere to go," I called out. My voice bounced off the concrete walls, amplifying the menace. "The exits are sealed. The elevators are disabled. It's just us." Silence answered me, then a scuff of a shoe against pavement. To my left, behind a black SUV, I turned my head slowly. I didn't rush. I walked toward the black SUV, loosening my tie as I went. "You threw a drink on my wife," I said, keeping my voice conversational. "You ruined a $5,000 dress. But that's not why I'm here. Money is easy to replace. Disrespect, that leaves a mark." I rounded the corner of the SUV. They were there, all 3 of them. They were backed up against a concrete pillar. Ryder was in the middle. Up close, he looked younger than I thought, maybe mid-20s. Expensive watch, flawless skin, but his eyes were hard. He wasn't cowering like his friends. He was standing his ground. "She's not your property, old man," Ryder spat. The words hit me like a physical slap. "Old man," I stopped 5 feet away from them. "Excuse me." Ryder stepped forward, puffing out his chest. It was a pathetic display of dominance, but it was bold. I said, "She's not your property. You think because you have money, you own people? You don't know anything." "I know you assaulted a woman," I said, my muscles tensing, readying for the strike. "Assault?" Ryder laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. "Is that what she told you? That I assaulted her?" "Shut up, Ryder," one of his friends hissed, pulling at his arm. "Don't provoke him. Look at him. He's crazy." "I'm not scared of him," Ryder said, though I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. He looked at me with a strange mixture of hatred and pity. "You're the big bad wolf, right? Mason Blackwood, the hero, the billionaire." He took another step toward me. "A challenge. You have no idea what's actually going on, do you?" Ryder whispered, my fists clenched. "I know enough." "You don't know, Jack," Ryder sneered. I didn't let him finish. I didn't want to hear his voice anymore. The soldier took over. I closed the distance in a blur of motion. Ryder threw a punch, a sloppy, wide swing that telegraphed his intent a mile away. I didn't even blink. I stepped inside his guard, caught his wrist with one hand, and drove my other hand into his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a wheezing gasp. He folded over. His friends scrambled, shouting, trying to jump in. The big one swung at me. I ducked, swept his leg, and sent him crashing onto the concrete. The third one backed away, hands up, terrified. I'm out, he yelled. I ignored him. I grabbed Ryder by the collar of his expensive jacket and slammed him backward against the concrete pillar. I pinned him there, my forearm against his throat. He clawed at my arm, his face turning red, gasping for air. "You think this is a game?" I growled, my face inches from his. "You think you can touch her and walk away?" Ryder's eyes were watering, but he stopped struggling. He stared at me, choking, and then he did it again. That same look he gave Violet in the mall. He stopped fighting. He went limp against the wall. He looked past me over my shoulder toward the entrance of the garage. I heard the rapid clicking of heels. "Mason, stop." Violet ran into the garage, breathless, her hair wild. She stopped 10 feet away, staring at us. She looked at Ryder, pinned against the wall, gasping for breath. "Let him go!" she screamed. "Please, you're going to kill him." I looked at Ryder. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at her, and in that moment, with my arm against his throat, he whispered 3 words. They were quiet, breathless, intended only for me to hear, but they landed with the force of a grenade. "She chose me." I froze. "What did you say?" I hissed, loosening my grip slightly. Ryder coughed, a wet hacking sound. He grinned, his teeth stained with a little blood from when he bit his tongue. "Ask her," he wheezed. "Ask her why she didn't move." The words hung in the dead air of the garage, like smoke from a gunshot. She chose me. My grip on his collar tightened instinctively, slamming his head back against the concrete with a dull thud. Ryder winced, his eyes scrunching shut, but that sick, victorious grin remained plastered on his face. "Mason." Violet's voice was a shriek now, echoing off the low ceiling. She rushed forward but stopped just outside striking distance, her hands hovering in the air as if she wanted to pull me off but was terrified to touch me. "Let him go. The police are coming. You'll go to jail." I didn't look at her. I couldn't. If I looked at her right now, I might see something I wasn't ready to process. My eyes were fixed on Ryder. This boy, this arrogant child who smelled like expensive cologne and fear. "What does that mean?" I whispered, my voice a low rumble deep in my chest. I leaned in closer until I could feel the heat radiating off his panicked skin. "What did you just say to me?" Ryder's eyes flickered open. The bravado was slipping now that the oxygen was being cut off, but the malice was still there. He looked past me, locking eyes with Violet over my shoulder. It was a communication, silent, desperate, and intimate. "Tell him," Ryder choked out, his face turning a darker shade of red. "Tell him the truth. Vi, not Violet, not Mrs. Blackwood, Vi." That nickname hit me harder than the punch he had tried to throw. Only her family called her Vi. I didn't even call her that. I called her V or darling. Vi was intimate. Vi implied history. I loosened my grip just enough for him to breathe. He sucked in a ragged gasp of air, coughing violently. "Shut up," Violet screamed at him. "Just shut up, Ryder. Don't say another word." I slowly turned my head. My neck felt stiff, like the gears were grinding against rust. Violet was pale, ghostly pale. She wasn't looking at the bruised man. She was looking at me, her eyes wide, pools of terror. But it wasn't the terror of a wife seeing her husband commit violence. It was the terror of a conspirator whose cover was blown. "He knows you?" I asked. My voice was dangerously calm. Violet took a step back, her hands trembling. "No, I don't know. He's crazy, Mason. He's obviously on something. Look at him. He attacked me upstairs. Now he's saying nonsense. He's trying to confuse you." "I'm not confused." Ryder wheezed from behind me. He slumped against the pillar as I stepped back, giving him space, but keeping him boxed in. He rubbed his throat, looking at Violet with a mixture of anger and betrayal. You said you were going to leave him, he muttered loud enough for both of us to hear. You said he was a boring, controlling old relic. I never said that, Violet shouted, her voice cracking. You're lying, Mason. He's lying. Why would I talk to him? I don't even know who he is. The air in the garage felt thick, suffocating. My mind was racing, trying to assemble the puzzle pieces that were falling from the sky. The drink, the hesitation, the way she tried to stop me from calling security. The way she knew his name was Ryder before I even said it. Wait, I replayed the last 10 minutes in my head. Stop, Ryder. Don't say another word. She had screamed his name a moment ago. I hadn't told her his name. I hadn't even known it until I saw the initial on his belt buckle and heard his friend whisper it, but she knew. I looked at Violet. How do you know his name? The color drained from her face completely. I heard you say it. I didn't say it. His friend said it, she stammered, pointing a shaking finger at the other guy who was still cowering by the cars. When they were running, I heard them. Liar. Ryder spat. He straightened his jacket, trying to regain some dignity despite the fact that I had just mopped the floor with him. She knows my name because she's been screaming it for 6 months. I moved. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a reflex. I lunged at him again. Violet screamed. Ryder flinched, throwing his hands up to protect his face, but I didn't hit him. I slammed my hand against the pillar next to his head, the sound cracking like a whip. 6 months, I wailed. The echo was deafening. Mason, stop. Violet ran to me now, grabbing my arm with both hands, using her weight to pull me back. She was crying hysterically. He's lying. Can't you see he's trying to hurt us? He's a psychopath who threw coffee on me. That's all this is. Sirens. I heard them wailing in the distance, getting louder. The flashing blue and red lights began to bounce off the ramp entrance outside the metal gates. The cavalry had arrived. I looked at Ryder. He looked shaken now, realizing the game had gone too far. The police were here. You better hope he's lying, I said to Violet, my voice cold as ice. I stepped back, adjusting my suit jacket. I smoothed out the wrinkles, straightened my tie, and took a deep breath. The soldier receded. The billionaire returned. The heavy metal gates of the garage began to rise slowly with a mechanical groan. Security guards rushed in first, flashlights beaming, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. Police hands where I can see them. Ryder and his friends raised their hands immediately. Violet let go of my arm and took a step away from me, wiping her tears, composing herself into the victim role she played so well. He attacked me, Ryder shouted, pointing at me. That maniac assaulted me. The officers looked at me. I stood tall, calm, unmoving. Officer, I said, my voice projecting authority. My name is Mason Blackwood. These men assaulted my wife in the atrium. They attempted to flee the scene. I detained them until you arrived. The lead officer lowered his gun slightly. He recognized me. Everyone in this city recognized me. Mr. Blackwood. Yes, you can check the security footage, I said, pointing up at the cameras. It will show unprovoked assault and battery on my wife. He choked me. Ryder yelled, rubbing his red neck. I restrained a fleeing suspect, I corrected smoothly. Violet stepped forward, her voice trembling, but clear. It's true, officer. They attacked me. My husband was just protecting me. Ryder looked at her, his jaw dropping. He looked like he had been slapped. He evidently thought she would defend him, that she would save him. But Violet was a survivor. She knew where the power was. She knew who paid the bills. In that moment, she threw Ryder under the bus to save her own skin. Ryder's face twisted into something ugly, a pure, unadulterated hatred. He stared at Violet with dead eyes. Okay, the officer said, holstering his weapon. We're going to need statements from everyone. You 3 against the car. Now, as the officers began to cuff Ryder and his friends, I watched closely. Ryder didn't fight them. He let them pull his arms behind his back. But as they turned him around to march him toward the squad car, he stopped. He looked right at me. Check her phone, he whispered. Move it, the officer shouted, shoving him forward. Check the hidden folder. Ryder yelled over his shoulder. A desperate final grenade tossed into my life. The passcode is your birthday, you idiot. She used your birthday. The police shoved him into the back of the cruiser and slammed the door. I stood there in the garage, the smell of exhaust fumes and betrayal thick in my throat. Violet was standing a few feet away, her arms wrapped around herself, shivering. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. He's crazy, she whispered again like a mantra. He's just crazy. I looked at her phone, which was clutched tightly in her hand. Her knuckles were white. "Give me the phone," I said. "Silence, Mason," she started, a nervous smile flickering on her lips. "Don't be ridiculous. You're not actually listening to a criminal, are you? Let's just go home. I need to shower. I feel gross. Give me the phone." She hesitated. For a split second, I saw her thumb hover over the screen. She was going to delete it. Whatever was there, she was going to wipe it. But then she looked at my face. She saw something there that stopped her. She realized that if she didn't hand it over, the war would start right here, right now. Slowly, reluctantly, she held the phone out to me. I took it. It was warm. "Let's go home," I said, sliding the phone into my own pocket without looking at it. "We have a lot to talk about." The drive home was a study in suffocation. My car, a custom armored SUV that usually felt like a sanctuary of leather and silence, now felt like a cage. Violet sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the blurred city lights. She had stopped crying, but her breathing was shallow, uneven. Every few seconds, she would shift in her seat, the fabric of her ruined dress rustling. A sharp, irritating sound in the dead quiet. I drove with one hand on the wheel. My other hand rested on my thigh, just inches away from the pocket where her phone sat. It felt heavy, like a lead weight. "Mason," she whispered, breaking the silence. Her voice was brittle. "You're driving too fast." I glanced at the speedometer. I was doing 60 in a 40 zone. I didn't slow down. "I just want to get home," I said. Are you mad at me?" she asked. The question was so childish, so manipulative, it almost made me laugh. "Mad?" I kept my eyes on the road. "A man assaulted you. I defended you. Why would I be mad at you, Violet?" I was baiting her. I wanted to see if she would take the out. "I don't know," she murmured, picking at a loose thread on her dress. "You just seem distant. And what that guy said? Ryder. It was just so awful. People say crazy things when they get caught, right? He just wanted to hurt you because you beat him up." "Ryder?" I repeated the name. "You called him Ryder back there." She flinched. "I told you. I heard his friend say it." "Right." I turned onto the private road that led to our estate. The iron gates swung open automatically, sensing the car's transponder. We crunched up the gravel driveway, past the manicured hedges, and the fountain that Violet had insisted on importing from Italy. Everything about this life, the house, the cars, the clothes, was for her. I lived in it, but she owned it. I had built a fortress to keep her safe, and now I was wondering if I had just locked myself in with a traitor. I parked the car in front of the main entrance. Before the engine even died, Violet had her door open. "I need a shower," she said quickly, scrambling out. "I smell like stale coffee. I just want to wash this day off." "Violet?" She froze, one foot on the pavement. "My phone?" she asked, turning back with a forced, trembling smile. She held out her hand. "I need to call my mom, tell her I'm okay." I killed the engine. The silence rushed back in. I reached into my pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up. A notification from Instagram. Just normal life. But underneath, I looked at her outstretched hand. It was shaking. "I need to check something first," I said. "Check what?" Her voice spiked an octave. "Mason, don't be weird. Give me my phone." Ryder said the passcode was my birthday. "So what?" she snapped, her mask slipping. "Lots of people use birthdays. It's easy to remember. That doesn't mean anything." "Then why are you sweating, Violet?" She wasn't just sweating, she was terrified. She looked like a trapped animal. "I'm not sweating, I'm upset. I was attacked." She lunged for the phone. I pulled it back easily. "Go inside. Take your shower." "No! Give it to me." She tried to grab it again, her nails scratching my hand. I caught her wrist, not hard, but firm enough to stop her. "Violet, stop." She stared at me, breathing hard. Then the tears came back. The weaponized tears. "You don't trust me?" she sobbed. "After everything, after 5 years, you're going to listen to some criminal over your own wife. Fine, keep it. Look through it. Read my texts to my mother. Read my grocery lists. Go ahead, be that guy." She yanked her hand away and turned, storming up the steps to the front door. She slammed it shut behind her. I sat in the car for a long time. I looked at the phone in my hand. It was an iPhone, sleek and innocent looking. Passcode. I typed in my birthday, October 14th, 80. It unlocked. My heart hammered against my ribs. Okay, that didn't prove anything. She used my birthday for everything. The gate code, the alarm, it made sense. I scrolled through her messages. Nothing. Just texts to her friends, her sister, her Pilates instructor. Nothing from Ryder. Nothing from an unknown number. I checked her call log. Clean. I checked WhatsApp. Clean. I checked her photos. Just selfies. Pictures of our dog. Pictures of food. I felt a wave of confusion. Had Ryder or lied? Was it just a mind game to destroy my marriage as revenge for the beating? It was possible. It was a classic tactic. I was about to turn the screen off, feeling a strange mix of relief and shame when I remembered his last words. The hidden folder on an iPhone, the hidden album in the Photos app, is usually locked with Face ID, but if you fail Face ID enough times, it asked for the passcode. I went to Photos. I scrolled down to the bottom, hidden. I tapped it. It asked for Face ID. I held the phone away from my face so it wouldn't register. Face not recognized. Face not recognized. Enter passcode. I typed in my birthday again, October 14th, 80. The folder opened. There were 412 photos and 56 videos. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. The world tilted on its axis. I tapped the first video. It was shaky footage. It looked like it was taken in a car, a convertible. The wind was blowing Violet's hair. She was laughing, head thrown back, looking more alive and happy than I had seen her in years. The camera panned. Ryder was driving. He was wearing sunglasses, singing along to the radio. He reached over and put his hand on her thigh. She covered his hand with hers and squeezed. "Stop filming," she laughed in the video. "Mason will kill me if he sees this car." "Forget Mason," Ryder's voice said from the speakers. "He's probably in a meeting. He's always in a meeting." "True," Violet said. She looked at the camera, her eyes sparkling. "I love you too, babe." The video ended. I sat in my driveway, surrounded by the silence of my expensive estate, and felt something inside me die. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot. This was cold. It was a hollow, desolate feeling. The woman in that video, that wasn't the woman I lived with. That woman was free. She was happy, and she was in love with a thug. I watched another one, a hotel room. The date stamp was from 3 months ago. The weekend I was in Tokyo for the merger. She said she was going to her mother's. Another one, a selfie of them in bed. Ryder was asleep. Violet was kissing his cheek. I scrolled down. The most recent one was from today. Today it was a photo taken in the mall mirror just before the attack. Violet was wearing the white dress. Ryder was standing behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, his chin on her shoulder. They weren't arguing, they were cuddling. The caption saved on the photo read, "Last time before I tell him, I promise." I lowered the phone. The attack wasn't an attack. It was a breakup or a fight or maybe just drama. It didn't matter. What mattered was that my entire life was a lie. I looked up at the house. The bathroom light was on upstairs. I could see the silhouette of my wife moving past the window. She was washing off the stain. She thought she had bluffed me. She thought I was sitting down here feeling guilty for doubting her. She thought she had won. I put the phone in my pocket. I didn't storm inside. I didn't scream. I didn't go upstairs and kick the door down. That's what a husband does. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a soldier, and I had just identified the enemy. I started the car engine again just to roll up the windows fully. Then I killed it. I sat in the darkness watching the house. The plan formed in my head instantly. It was cold, precise, and brutal. I wouldn't just divorce her. Divorce is a legal proceeding. Divorce involves lawyers and settlements and alimony. No, I wanted total destruction. I picked up my own phone and dialed the number. "Grant," I said when the line clicked open, "I need you to wake up." "I have a job, Mason. It's midnight." Grant's sleepy voice replied. "What kind of job?" "Asset recovery," I said, my eyes fixed on the bathroom window. "And target elimination. I need everything you can find on a man named Ryder. And I need to know how to buy the debt on his father's company." "What did he do?" Grant asked, sensing the tone in my voice. "He woke me up," I said. 2 days later, the house was quiet. It was always quiet, but now the silence had a texture. It felt like the air before a thunderstorm, heavy, electric, waiting for the crack. Violet was behaving like the model survivor. She spent the mornings in bed, claiming she had a migraine from the stress. She wore soft, oversized sweaters and avoided eye contact. When she did look at me, her eyes were wide and watery, begging for reassurance. "Are you okay, Mason?" she asked me over breakfast, picking at her avocado toast. "You haven't been to the office in 2 days." "I'm working from home," I said, not looking up from my tablet. "I want to be close to you." "After what happened," she smiled. "A weak, relieved little thing. You're so good to me. I don't deserve you." "No," I thought you don't, but I smiled back. You deserve the world, V. I was playing the part perfectly, the doing protective husband. I brought her tea. I rubbed her shoulders. I asked if she wanted to see a therapist about the trauma. I watched her lie to my face every single time, nodding along as she spun stories about how terrified she was of that man. Meanwhile, I was hunting. My home office is soundproofed. It has a separate server rack and 3 monitors. On the center screen, the security footage from the mall was paused. I had watched it 100 times. Time 14:02, Violet and Ryder are standing near the fountain. They aren't fighting yet. They are close. Too close for strangers. Violet's hand is on his forearm. Her body language is open, pleading. Time 14:04. Ryder pulls away. He looks angry. He says something. Violet grabs his hand. He shakes her off. Time 14:05. The push. She shoves his chest. He stumbles back. That's when the drink flies. It wasn't premeditated assault. It was a reactive, childish tantrum from a lover who was being dumped or denied. I zoomed in on Ryder's face in the footage. I froze the frame. I picked up my phone. Grant was on the other line. I sent you the file, Grant said. His voice was grim. Mason, you're not going to like this. I don't pay you to make me happy, Grant. I pay you for the truth. I opened the file on the left monitor. Target, Ryder Sterling, age 26, occupation, entrepreneur, unemployed, family, son of Arthur Sterling, CEO of Sterling Real Estate Holdings. He's a trust fund kid, Grant explained. Failed out of business school, started 3 companies, all bankrupt. Daddy keeps bailing him out, but here's the kicker. Look at page 4. I scrolled down. Bank transactions. There were transfers, monthly transfers from V. Blackwood Personal ACIC to R. Sterling Consulting LLC. Amount $15,000. $15,000 a month. Grant said she's been funding his lifestyle, Mason. She's paying his rent. She's paying for his car. She's paying for the damn clothes he was wearing when he threw the drink on her. I stared at the numbers. My money. The money I worked for. The money I bled for. She was taking it and giving it to this boy so he could play pretend businessman. It gets worse, Grant continued. Look at the dates. The transfers started 8 months ago, but the last one was attempted 3 days ago. It was declined. Why was it declined? I asked. Because you put a cap on her personal spending account last week, Grant said. Remember? You told the accountant to flag any transfer over 10 grand because of that charity fraud alert. I leaned back in my chair. That was it. That was the fight. She couldn't pay him. The money train stopped. Ryder threw a fit because his sugar mama couldn't cut the check. He didn't care about her. He cared about the cash. He's a parasite, I whispered. And she's the host, Grant added. Mason, what do you want to do? I can leak this to his dad. Arthur Sterling is old school. He'll cut the kid off if he knows he's extorting a married woman. Or we can go to the police. This is technically fraud. No, I said instantly. No police, no leaks. Then what? I don't want to just stop him, Grant. I want to own him. I closed the file and brought up a new window. The stock market analysis of Sterling Real Estate Holdings. How is his father's company doing? I asked. Not good, Grant replied. The clicking of his keyboard audible over the line. They're over-leveraged. They took a massive loan to build that new complex downtown. If they miss the next quarterly payment, the bank calls the debt. Who holds the debt? Vanguard City Bank. I smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile. I have a meeting with the board of Vanguard on Thursday, I said. I think I'm going to make a purchase. You're going to buy the debt? Grant sounded impressed. Mason, that's a $50 million move just to squash a bug. It's not just about the bug, I said, looking at the ceiling, imagining Violet upstairs in our bed. It's about the environment. I want to control the air they breathe. I want to control the ground they walk on. When I pull the rug, I want them to fall into a hole that has my name on it. Understood, Grant said. One more thing. Ryder has been trying to contact her. I know. I blocked his number on her phone. He bought a burner. He sent a text 10 minutes ago. I intercepted it. Read it. Grant cleared his throat. You think you can ghost me? I have the videos. I have everything. You bring me $50K cash by Friday, or I send this sex tape to your husband. I'm not playing anymore. Silence filled the room. Blackmail. Of course, the parasite was hungry. Mason, let it go through. I said. What? Grant sounded shocked. You want her to see that? Yes. Unblock the number. Let her receive the threat. Why? Because I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the sprawling lawn of my estate. I want to see what she does. I want to see how desperate she gets. A desperate enemy makes mistakes, and when she makes a mistake, I'll be there to catch it. You're playing a dangerous game, boss. I'm not playing, Grant, I said, watching a gardener trim the roses. I'm closing the exits. I hung up. I walked out of my office and went upstairs. I found Violet in the master bedroom. She was sitting on the edge of the bed holding her phone. Her face was ashen. She had just read the text. She looked up when I entered, quickly, hiding the phone behind her back. Hey, she stammered. I didn't hear you come up. Is everything okay? I asked, sitting down next to her. I put my hand on her knee. I felt her tremble. Yeah, just headache, she lied. I was thinking, I said casually. We need to get your mind off things. We need to face the world. We can't let these thugs win, right? What do you mean? She asked, her voice thin. I'm hosting a dinner party, I announced. This Saturday, a small gathering, some business partners, some friends. I want you to buy a new dress, something stunning. Mason, I don't feel like a party. It's not a request, V, I said softly, squeezing her knee just a little too hard. It's a statement. We are the Blackwoods. We don't hide. We dominate. She looked at me trapped. She couldn't say no without raising suspicion. She had to play the role of the supportive wife even while she was being blackmailed by her lover. Okay, she whispered. Okay, Mason. Great. I stood up and kissed her on the forehead. Oh, V, yes. Make sure the dress is red, I said. Like blood. It's a power color. I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her phone and her terror. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for the rats to run into it. The days leading up to the dinner party were a masterclass in deception. I watched Violet disintegrate. It was a slow, agonizing process. She stopped eating. The circles under her eyes grew darker. No matter how much concealer she applied, she was jumpy, constantly checking her phone, flinching every time it buzzed. I knew why. Ryder was pressing her. Grant was forwarding me every text. Wednesday 10 a.m. Ryder, 2 days left. Vi, don't test me. Wednesday 10:05 a.m. Violet, please. Ryder, I can't get that much cash without Mason noticing. Just give me time. Wednesday 10:07 a.m. Ryder, ask your hubby for a jewelry allowance or sell a bag. I don't care. Friday, 50K. I watched her pace around the living room while I pretended to read the newspaper. I watched her go into my study and stare at the safe, debating whether she knew the combination. She didn't. I had changed it the night of the mall incident. She was drowning, and I was the water. Thursday came, the day of my meeting with Vanguard City Bank. I put on my best suit, charcoal gray custom fit. I tied my tie with precision. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like a man whose wife was cheating on him. I looked like a shark. Where are you going? Violet asked. She was sitting at the kitchen island staring into a cup of black coffee. Business meeting, I said, grabbing an apple. Big investment opportunity came up. Very distressed asset. I'm going to buy it for pennies on the dollar. That sounds nice, she murmured, clearly not listening. It is, I said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. It involves a real estate family, the Starings. Do you know them? She froze. The coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. No, she said quickly. Never heard of them. Strange, I said, straightening up. I thought you might have run into them in your social circles. The son is about your age. A bit of a troublemaker, apparently. I told you I don't know them, she snapped, a flash of defensiveness breaking through her exhaustion. All right, I smiled. I'll see you tonight. I walked out. The meeting at the bank was short. I walked into the boardroom with my team of lawyers. The bank executives were nervous. They knew Sterling Real Estate was failing, and they were desperate to offload the bad debt. Mr. Blackwood, the lead banker said, sweating slightly. We are prepared to offer you the debt package at 80 cents on the dollar. 50, I said, not sitting down. 50, Mr. Blackwood, that's the offer. I cut him off. Take it or I walk. And you can explain to your shareholders why you're holding $50 million in toxic assets from a company that's about to implode. They took the deal. By 2:00 p.m., I owned Arthur Sterling, which meant I owned Ryder Sterling. I sat in my car outside the bank and called Grant. It's done, I said. Good, Grant replied. Because I found something else. What? I did a deeper dive into Ryder's phone records. I managed to clone his SIM card for an hour while he was at the gym. He's not just blackmailing Violet. Explain, he's texting other women. Mason, similar patterns. Flirting, dating, extracting money. But Violet, she's the whale. She's the biggest catch he's ever had. But here's the thing. He's also texting a guy named Snaked. Snake? Yeah. It looks like a dealer or a loan shark. Ryder owes him money, big money. That's why he's squeezing Violet so hard. If he doesn't pay this Snake character by the weekend, he's going to get his legs broken. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. So the predator is also prey. I said exactly. He's desperate. That makes him dangerous. Mason. If Violet doesn't pay him on Friday, he might actually release the tape just to burn her down out of spite. He won't get the chance, I said. Where is he right now? He's at his apartment. What? I'm going to pay him a visit. No, I corrected myself. That's too direct. I want him to come to me. How? Send him an email, I said from a generic law firm address. Tell him that an anonymous benefactor is interested in purchasing the rights to his digital assets for $100,000. Tell him to come to the Blackwood estate on Saturday night. Tell him to enter through the service gate and ask for Mr. Blackwood. You want him at the party? Grant asked, incredulous. Mason, that's insane. Violet will be there. Exactly, I said. I want them both in the same room. I want her to see him. I want him to think he's about to get paid. And then I want to close the door. You're a sick man, Mason. I'm a focused man, Grant. Send the email. I drove home. When I walked in, Violet was gone. The housekeeper told me she had gone out shopping. I knew where she went. She went to sell something. I went upstairs to her closet. It was a massive walk-in room, filled with designer bags, shoes, and jewelry. I scanned the shelves. Her Air Hermes Birkin bag was missing, the black crocodile one. It was worth at least $40,000 on the resale market. She was trying to pay him. I felt a surge of disgust. She was stealing from me, selling the gifts I gave her to pay off the man who was threatening to destroy us. It was pathetic. I sat down on the ottoman in the center of the closet. I waited. 2 hours later, I heard the front door open. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. They were lighter, faster. She had the money. She felt relief. She walked into the bedroom carrying a large shopping bag from a department store, a cover. She stopped when she saw me sitting in her closet. Mason, she gasped, clutching the bag to her chest. You scared me. Did you find a dress? I asked. What? Oh yes. No. I mean, I looked, but I didn't see anything I liked. Where is your Birkin? I asked. The heir left the room. My what? The black crocodile Birkin. It was right there on that shelf this morning. I pointed to the empty spot. Violet's eyes darted to the empty shelf, then back to me. Oh, that I took it to get cleaned. It had a smudge. Cleaned, I repeated. Yes, at the specialist downtown. They need a few days. That's funny, I said, standing up and walking toward her. Because I just called the specialist to check on your other bag, and they said they haven't seen you in months. She took a step back. Well, I took it to a different place. Why are you interrogating me about a handbag, Mason? Are you obsessed with my closet now? I'm obsessed with the truth, Violet. I stopped right in front of her. I could smell the fresh air on her clothes, and underneath that, the smell of fear. I have a surprise for you, I said, changing the subject abruptly. A surprise? She blinked, confused by the shift. For the party on Saturday, I invited a special guest, someone I think you should meet. Who? It's a surprise. I smiled, but I think he's going to change our lives. I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. My hand brushed her cheek. It was cold. By the way, I whispered, don't pay him. Her eyes went wide. What? The pool guy? I said smoothly, stepping back. Don't pay the pool guy until he fixes the filter properly. He's been slacking. I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, heart pounding, clutching a bag full of cash that she now didn't know how to deliver. The news was tightening. Friday arrived with a suffocating tension. The air in the house felt brittle, as if one wrong move would shatter the walls. Violet was a ghost. She moved through the room silently, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline or a detonator. I knew she still had the cash from the sold handbag hidden somewhere, probably in the spare tire well of her car, or buried in the back of her lingerie drawer. She was desperate to deliver it to Ryder, but I had made sure she couldn't leave. I need you here today, V, I had told her at breakfast. The caterers are coming for a walkthrough. The florists need direction. You're the lady of the house. I need you to supervise. She had tried to argue. Mason, I really need to run an errand. It can wait, I'd said, my voice leaving no room for debate. This party is important for the company. I need you focused. So, she stayed trapped in her own luxury prison. I spent the day in my office monitoring the digital perimeter. Grant sent me an update at noon. Email delivered to Ryder Sterling. Read receipt confirmed. Reply from Ryder, I'll be there. Cash only. He took the bait. Of course he did. Greed makes people stupid. He thought he had hit the jackpot. 2 paydays in one weekend. $50,000 from a terrified ex-girlfriend on Friday, and a $100,000 from a mysterious buyer on Saturday. He probably thought he was invincible. At 4:00 p.m., I watched the security cameras. Violet was in the garden talking to the florist. She looked frantic. She kept checking her watch. The deadline Ryder gave her was 5 p.m. I zoomed in. She was texting. I checked the clone feed on my monitor. Violet, I have the money, but I can't get away. Mason is watching me like a hawk. Please, Ryder, just give me until tomorrow night. I promise, Ryder. 5 p.m. Vi or I hit send. Violet, please, he's hosting a party tomorrow. I can slip it to you then. No, that's crazy. Just wait, Ryder. Tick-tock. I leaned back in my chair. He was enjoying this. He was torturing her. I decided to intervene, not to save her, but to ensure the stage was set perfectly for Saturday. I picked up my burner phone, the one Grant used to send the email to Ryder. I typed a message to Ryder's number. Subject regarding tomorrow's meeting body, Mr. Sterling. To ensure discretion, please do not engage with any other parties regarding your assets until we meet. We are aware of your other negotiations. If you release any data before we purchase it, our deal is void. Hold your fire until Saturday night. I hit send. I watched the screen. 2 minutes later, Ryder texted Violet. Ryder, you got lucky. Tomorrow night, but the price just went up to $75K. Don't disappoint me. I saw Violet on the garden camera collapse onto a stone bench. She put her head in her hands and sobbed. It was a weep of pure relief. She thought she had bought herself a day. She didn't know she had just bought herself a front row seat to her own execution. Saturday, the day of the party. The house was buzzing with activity. Waiters in black vests were setting up tables on the terrace. A string quartet was tuning up in the ballroom. The smell of roasting duck and expensive wine filled the air. I found Violet in the bedroom. She was staring at the red dress hanging on the closet door. It was a sleek backless number. Scarlet, dangerous. It's beautiful, I said, leaning in the doorway. She jumped. Mason, God, you keep sneaking up on me. I'm not sneaking, Violet. I live here. I walked over and touched the fabric of the dress. Put it on. Guest will be arriving in an hour. Mason, she said, turning to me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Do we have to do this? I really don't feel well. We do, I said gently, because tonight is about new beginnings. I have a feeling after tonight everything is going to be different. She looked at me, searching my face for any sign that I knew. But I gave her nothing, just the calm, confident mask of Mason Blackwood. Okay, she whispered. I'll get ready. I went downstairs to greet the first guests. They were the usual crowd. Senators, tech CEOs, old money families. I shook hands. I laughed at bad jokes. I accepted compliments on the wine. Mason, where is that lovely wife of yours? Senator Collins asked, clapping me on the shoulder. She's making an entrance, I said, sipping my sparkling water. You know how she is. At 8 p.m., Violet descended the grand staircase. The room went quiet for a moment. She looked stunning. The red dress clung to her like a second skin. Her hair was swept up, exposing her neck. She wore the diamond necklace I had given her for our 5th anniversary. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were darting around the room, scanning the faces. She was looking for him. She was terrified he would show up to crash the party, or worse, that he was already here. She didn't know he was coming to the service entrance. I walked over to her and offered my arm. You look breathtaking, I said. Thank you, she murmured. Her arm was stiff against mine. Is everyone here? Almost, I said, just waiting for a few stragglers. We circulated. I kept her close. I wanted her to feel the weight of my presence. Every time she laughed at a guest's comment, I felt the vibration of it against my side, and it felt like a lie. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed in my pocket. One single vibration. Grant, the Eagle has landed. He's at the service gate. Security is escorting him to the library. I check my watch. Darling, I said to Violet, interrupting her conversation with the senator's wife. I need to handle a small business matter in the library. Can you hold down the fort for 10 minutes? She looked relieved to be rid of me. Of course, go. Actually, I paused. Why don't you come with me? It involves the investment I told you about, the Sterling deal. Her face went white. I should stay with the guests. Nonsense, I said, grinning. Senator, excuse us, my wife is my lucky charm. I never sign a deal without her. I gripped her elbow. It wasn't a suggestion. Mason, you're hurting me, she whispered, as I steered her away from the crowd toward the heavy oak doors of the library. I'm just guiding you, V, I said. Trust me. We reached the library doors. 2 of my personal security guards stood outside. They nodded at me. Is he inside? I asked. Yes, sir, he's waiting. I looked at Violet. She was trembling. She knew somewhere deep down. Her survival instinct was screaming that this was a trap. Mason, who is in there? She asked, her voice barely a squeak. The future, I said. I pushed the doors open. The library was dimly lit, smelling of old paper and leather. A fire was crackling in the hearth. Standing by the fireplace, holding a glass of my best scotch, was Ryder Sterling. He was wearing a tuxedo that looked rented. He turned around as the doors opened, a smug smile on his face. He expected to see a lawyer. He expected to see a payoff. When he saw me, his smile faltered. When he saw Violet standing next to me in the red dress, his glass slipped from his fingers. Smash! The crystal shattered on the hardwood floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. Mason, Ryder stammered. What is this? Violet let out a sound, a strangled gasp of horror. She tried to back out of the room, but I closed the doors behind us and locked them. Click! I turned to face them. Welcome to the party, I said. The silence in the library was absolute. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the ragged, terrified breathing of the 2 people standing before me. Ryder looked like a child caught stealing candy, but with the dawning realization that the shopkeeper was holding a shotgun. He looked from me to Violet, then back to me, his eyes wide and frantic. Violet was frozen. She was staring at the shattered glass on the floor, her hands clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles were white. She looked like she was about to faint. I walked calmly over to the desk, pouring myself a drink. I didn't offer them one. Nice tuxedo, Ryder, I said, taking a sip. A bit tight in the shoulders, though. Rental. What is going on? Ryder's voice cracked. He tried to puff out his chest to regain some of that arrogance he had in the garage. But it wasn't working. I got an email from a law firm. They said someone wanted to buy my assets. That was me, I said. You? He blinked. You want to buy the videos? I don't need to buy them, Ryder, I said, setting my glass down. I've already seen them. Violet made a noise, a whimper. She covered her mouth with her hand. Ryder paled. You hacked me. I'm a man of resources, I said, leaning against the desk. But we aren't here to talk about your amateur pornography collection. We're here to talk about business. I looked at Violet. Violet, come stand over here by your husband. She didn't move. Violet, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Now. She shuffled over to me, her legs shaking. She stood next to me, but she wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't look at Ryder either. She stared at the floor. So I began addressing Ryder. You wanted $50,000 from my wife. Then 75. Because you owe money to a man named Snake. Is that correct? Ryder's jaw dropped. How do you? I know everything, Ryder. I know about the gambling. I know about the failed businesses. I know about the texts. I took a step toward him, and I know about your father. Leave my father out of this. Ryder snapped, though his voice lacked any real bite. Too late, I said. I had a meeting with Vanguard City Bank on Thursday. Ryder froze. What? Sterling Real Estate Holdings? I recited. 50 million in debt, quarterly payment due next week. If missed, default triggers immediate liquidation. I smiled. I bought the debt, Ryder. He stared at me uncomprehending. You bought. I own your father's company, I clarified. I own the building you live in. I own the car you drove here. I own the shirt on your back. Technically, I own you. Ryder stumbled back a step, hitting the mantelpiece. No, you can't do that. I did it. It cost me $25 million, which coincidentally is about what I spent on my wife's jewelry collection over the last 5 years. Pocket change. I turned to Violet. She was looking at me now, her eyes wide with shock. She had no idea. She thought this was just a messy affair. She didn't realize I had dropped a nuclear bomb on her lover's entire existence. Mason, she whispered. What? Because I wanted to see what you were worth, I said to her. And apparently, you were worth $75,000 and a cheap blackmail threat. I walked over to the desk and picked up a folder. I tossed it onto the coffee table in front of Ryder. Open it, I commanded. Ryder reached out with a trembling hand and opened the folder. Inside was a single document. A confession. "What is this?" Ryder asked, reading the first few lines. "It's a statement," I explained. "It details how you targeted my wife, how you seduced her for the purpose of financial extortion, how you planned to blackmail us, and how you embezzled money from your father's company to pay your gambling debts." "I didn't embezzle, you will," I cut him off. "Or rather, the police will find evidence that you did, unless you sign that." "If I sign this, I go to jail," Ryder said, looking up at me with tears in his eyes. "If you sign it," I corrected, "I don't release the evidence of the embezzlement to the SEC. I don't evict your father from his home tomorrow morning. I don't ruin your family name forever. You sign it. You leave the country and you never ever speak to my wife again." Ryder looked at the paper, then he looked at Violet. "Bye," he asked, "help me." Violet looked at him. She saw a broken boy. She saw a coward. She saw the man who had threatened to ruin her life for cash. "You tried to sell me out, Ryder," she whispered, her voice gaining a sudden sharp edge. "You were going to send the videos." "I was desperate," he pleaded. "Sign it," Violet said. I raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." She was switching sides again, survival mode. Ryder looked at her with pure hatred. UB*TCH. "Sign the paper, Ryder," I said, checking my watch. "My guests are waiting, and Snake is looking for you." Ryder grabbed the pen. He scribbled his name. He threw the pen down. "There," he spat. "Are you happy?" "Ecstatic," I said, picking up the folder. "Now get out. Use the service exit. If I ever see you again, Ryder, I won't be this polite." Ryder stormed to the door. He tried to open it. Locked. He looked back at me. I clicked the remote in my pocket. The lock disengaged. He ripped the door open and fled into the night. The library was quiet again, just me and Violet. She let out a long, shuddering breath. She looked at me, a tentative hope in her eyes. She thought it was over. She thought I had saved us. She thought I had destroyed Ryder to protect our marriage. "Mason," she said, stepping toward me, reaching for my hand. "Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. He was a monster. I made a mistake, a horrible mistake, but you handled it. You saved us." She put her hands on my chest, looking up at me with those big, what eyes. "I love you. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I looked down at her hands on my suit. I didn't feel warmth. I felt nothing. "Save us," I repeated softly. "Yes." She smiled, wiping a tear away. "We can put this behind us. We can start over." I laughed. It was a cold, dark sound. "Violet," I said, removing her hands from my chest, as if they were covered in mud. "I didn't get rid of him to save us." Her smile faltered. "What?" "I got rid of him," I said, walking to the door, "so I could deal with you without any distractions." I opened the library door. The music from the party flooded in. "Come on," I said, gesturing to the hallway. "Dinner is served." The transition from the library to the dining room was surreal. 1 minute, I was watching the color drain from Violet's face as my words sank in. The next, we were walking arm in arm into a room full of applause. "And here they are!" Senator Collins boomed, raising his glass. "The power couple!" The guests cheered. Crystal glasses clinked. The chandeliers sparkled overhead. It was a scene of perfect opulent happiness, and Violet was terrified. She was holding my arm, not out of affection, but because her legs were failing her. She was a statue of elegance in that red dress. But I could feel the tremors running through her body. She smiled at the guests, a tight, grimacing smile, while her eyes darted to me, pleading for a reprieve, for an explanation. "Shall we sit?" I asked loudly, pulling out her chair at the head of the long mahogany table. She sat down heavily. I took my seat at the opposite end. 30 feet of flowers, candles, and expensive china separated us. The dinner began. Waiters poured wine. Courses were served. The conversation flowed. Politics, the stock market, golf handicaps. I played the gracious host. I told stories, I laughed. I made sure everyone's glass was full. Violet barely touched her food. She drank her wine quickly, signaling the waiter for a refill immediately. She was watching me, waiting for the axe to fall. Around the third course, a delicate seared scallop. I tapped my spoon against my glass. Ting ting ting. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. "If I could have everyone's attention for a moment," I said, standing up. I held my wine glass aloft. Violet went rigid. She gripped the tablecloth so hard her knuckles turned white. "Tonight is a special night," I began, my voice warm and commanding. We are here to celebrate success, resilience, and loyalty. A murmur of agreement went around the table. Here, you know, I continued, looking down the table directly at Violet. My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and in those 5 years, I've learned a lot about trust. Trust is like a mirror. Once it's broken, you can try to glue it back together, but you can always see the cracks. The room was quiet. People sensed a shift in the tone. The senator stopped chewing. Recently, I said, pacing slowly along the side of the table toward Violet. We had an incident, a little stumble at the mall. Some of you might have heard about it. Violet closed her eyes. Please, Mason, don't. I could practically hear her thoughts. A young man threw a drink on my wife, I said. It seemed like a random act of violence, bullying. But as I looked closer, I realized it wasn't random at all. I stopped right behind Violet's chair. I put my hands on her shoulders. She flinched violently. It turns out, I said to the room, that sometimes the people who hurt us the most aren't strangers. They are the people we invite into our lives. The people we text when our husbands are at work. The people we give money to. The silence was deafening now. The guests were exchanging uncomfortable glances. This was no longer a toast. It was a public dissection. Mason, Violet whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. But we handled it, I said cheerfully, patting her shoulder. Didn't we, darling? We removed the problem. I walked back to my seat. But tonight isn't about the past, I said, picking up a remote control from the table. It's about the future, and I have a special presentation, a little project I've been working on. Violet's head snapped up. Mason, no. Please relax, V, I said. It's just a business update. I pointed the remote at the large screen on the wall, usually covered by a painting, which now slid away. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't the sex tape. I wasn't that crude. It was a spreadsheet. Title: The Sterling Acquisition and Liquidation Strategy. The guest squinted at the screen. What is this, Mason? Someone asked. This, I said, is the financial ruin of the Sterling family. As of yesterday, I acquired all of their debt, and as of this morning, I clicked a button. The screen changed to a legal document. I have initiated foreclosure proceedings on their primary residence and seized their business assets. A gasp went through the room. The strings were well known. Why? Asked a banker near the center. That's aggressive even for you. Because I said, looking at Violet. The son Ryder Sterling decided to take something of mine. So I decided to take everything of his. Violet put her hand over her mouth. She was shaking uncontrollably. She realized then the scale of what I had done. I hadn't just scared Ryder away. I had nuked his entire family to punish her. And I added, I found some interesting discrepancies in my own accounts during the audit. It seems $75,000 went missing recently. I clicked the remote again. A bank statement appeared. Violet Blackwood unauthorized withdrawals. The guests were whispering now. This was a train wreck and they couldn't look away. It's amazing what people will pay to keep a secret, I said. But the problem with secrets is they always cost more than you can afford. I looked at Dominic, my lawyer, who was sitting quietly at the end of the table. He nodded. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. Dominic, I said, would you please give my wife her gift? Dominic stood up and walked over to Violet. He placed the envelope on her placemat. What is this? Violet whispered, staring at it like it was a bomb. Open it, I said. She opened the envelope with trembling fingers. She pulled out the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage, she gasped. A sob escaped her throat. I tried to save you, Violet, I said, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. I closed the exits at the mall to catch the man who disrespected you, but I realized the disrespect was coming from inside the house. Violet stood up, knocking her chair over. Mason, you can't do this. Not here. Not in front of everyone. I can't, I said calmly. And I just did. I raised my glass one last time. To freedom, I said. I drank. Violet looked around the room. The faces of her friends, the senator, the bankers, the socialites were cold. They were judging her. They knew. In their world, betrayal was a sin, but getting caught was unforgivable. She burst into tears and ran from the room. The guests sat in stunned silence. Please, I said, sitting back down and picking up my fork. Enjoy the scallops. They're excellent. The music had stopped. The laughter had died. The clinking of silverware had faded into an uncomfortable stillness long before dessert arrived. My guests left early that night, faces pale, murmuring polite excuses. They were the kind of people who worship power but fear scandal more. They wouldn't talk openly, but they'd whisper in private circles about how the great Mason Blackwood had just burned his wife alive at his own table. By midnight, the house was empty. Every echo felt heavier now. The staff was gone. The servers dismissed. Only the tick of the grandfather clock filled the space as I walked down the marble hallway toward the study. Violet was there, standing by the fireplace, barefoot, still wearing that red dress, torn at the hem, makeup streaked down her face. Her eyes were bloodshot from crying. She looked at me as if she didn't recognize the man she'd married. "Mason," she started, her voice breaking. "Please listen to me. You've made your point. You've punished me. Everyone knows. You've humiliated me. Isn't that enough?" I closed the door behind me. "Enough." I poured myself a drink, the last glass of that 12-year whiskey she gave me on our 3rd anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "You destroyed me," she whispered, in front of everyone. "No," I said, staring into the amber liquid. "You destroyed me in private. I returned the favor, in public." She stepped forward, shaking. "I made a mistake. I fell into something stupid, reckless. I was lonely. You were always gone, Mason, always busy. I needed someone to make me feel alive." I turned, finally looking her in the eyes. "So, you found a degenerate gambler who called you Vi, like you were cheap wine. That was your idea of being alive?" Her lip trembled. She said nothing. "You used my money to feed him, Violet. You used my name to lie. You let him touch you while I was closing billion-dollar deals to keep us living like royalty. Every lie you told bought him another suit, another night in a hotel paid for by me." "I didn't love him," she snapped suddenly, her voice rising, desperate and raw. "It was a distraction, a stupid fantasy. I didn't feel anything real for him." "That's worse," I interrupted coldly. "It means you betrayed me for nothing." She broke down, sobbing, dropping to her knees. "It might have been pity-worthy once, but not anymore. I did what I did," I said, walking toward her, because I wanted to understand just how much of my life was built on lies. "Now I know all of it." I tossed a document onto the coffee table. It was stamped and sealed. "Divorce papers were filed this morning. Dominic expedited everything. You'll find a full list of transferred assets, settlement details, and terms outlining the division of property." She blinked through tears. "You already filed." I don't believe in hesitation. She reached for the papers with shaking hands and froze. There was another envelope beneath it, smaller, thinner, with her name typed neatly across the front. "What's this?" she asked. "Your father's house," I said. "The one I paid off 5 years ago. I added it to your settlement. You'll need a place to live once you leave tomorrow morning." She looked up sharply. "Tomorrow? Mason, please, where am I supposed to go?" "Anywhere that doesn't have my name on the gate." Her chest heaved. "You can't do this to me. I'll be a joke. I'll have nothing." I set my glass down. "You'll have the one thing you earned, Violet. Freedom. You wanted it. Now you have it." She stood up, trembling with fury. "You planned every second of this, didn't you? You didn't just want revenge. You wanted to destroy me completely." "No," I said softly. "Destruction is easy. This," I gestured around us to the mansion, the silence, her tears. "This is justice. Quiet, clean, permanent." The fire popped loudly behind her. Shadows danced across her face. For a moment, I saw the woman I once loved. Strong, beautiful, untouchable. The memory stung worse than the betrayal itself. "What about Ryder?" she asked after a long pause, her voice fragile. "You made him sign something. What happens to him now?" "He's leaving the country," I said flatly. "His father declared bankruptcy this morning. Sterling real estate is being taken apart piece by piece. It'll be years before he can afford to tell another lie." "And me," she whispered. "What about me, Mason? Do I just vanish too?" I met her gaze steadily. "That depends on how loud you scream on your way out." A heavy silence settled over the room. Then slowly, she nodded, as though finally accepting there was no rescuing this version of her life anymore. No negotiating, no pleading. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You once told me you'd love me no matter what. That nothing could ever break us. Was that a lie?" I smiled faintly. "No, that part was true, but love and forgiveness aren't the same thing." She looked at me as though she wanted to say something more, but the words simply wouldn't form. Eventually, she turned and walked away. Her red dress vanished into the shadows of the hallway, leaving behind only the faint echo of her heels, sounding more like gunshots than footsteps. I stood there until the sound faded completely. Then I exhaled, a deep hollow breath that felt like closing a chapter of a story you never wanted to end. The fire in the hearth burned lower. I poured the remainder of my whiskey into the flames. They hissed, sputtered, and went out. Then everything fell completely silent. Morning arrived wrapped in soft gray quiet. The storm had already passed, but the air still carried the scent of smoke, as though the house itself understood that something sacred had burned away inside it overnight. The world felt both lighter and impossibly heavy all at once. I stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, watching Violet pack her things. She wasn't crying anymore. Her movements were slow, mechanical, almost graceful in their own way. For the first time in years, she looked genuinely real. No pretense, no mask, just a tired woman gathering up the pieces of a life she'd lost. The red dress was gone now. She wore jeans, a sweater, and her hair pulled into a simple ponytail. Somehow that made her look both younger and sadder at the same time. She zipped up her suitcase and turned to face me. Tears filled her eyes again, though they didn't fall this time. "Will you ever forgive me, Mason?" she asked quietly. "I know I don't deserve it, but will you?" I took a long breath. Morning light slanted through the window, catching the dust suspended in the air, floating between us like all the words neither of us said. "Forgiveness isn't really the issue," I said. "I just don't see the point in giving it to someone who wouldn't know what to do with it anyway." Her lips trembled. No more excuses this time, no more defense, just silence. I handed her the house keys, the ones I'd had copied the night before, for her father's place. "It's already been put in your name. The car outside is yours too. After this, we're finished." She nodded slowly. "Goodbye, Mason." She started down the hallway, dragging her suitcase behind her. I didn't follow. The sound of the wheels rolling across marble echoed until the front door clicked softly shut. Then there was nothing but quiet once more. I stood in that empty house for a long time, staring at nothing in particular. I had won. I'd gotten my justice, my revenge, my closure, whatever people choose to call it when someone else's betrayal finally stops bleeding inside you. But victory didn't feel like triumph at all. It felt like standing in the wreckage of a war and realizing there was no one left around to tell you that you'd actually survived it. I walked out onto the terrace overlooking the city below. The sun was rising, painting the horizon in warm orange light. Somewhere out there, Violet was starting a new chapter of her own. And maybe that was enough, that each of us could learn to live with what we'd done and what we'd lost along the way. I raised the last glass of whiskey I'd kept aside, not to her, not to the past, but to peace itself. Because revenge ends the moment pain finally runs its course, and mine finally had. I set the glass down, turned my back on everything that used to feel like home, and walked away into the quiet morning ahead.